Hello there, rising juniors and parents. I'm glad that you're here with me today for this little informational video about APUS history, just to give you a little bit more information about what to expect next year in APUS history, what kind of things you'll be learning, and also a good bit about sort of the higher standards, the rigor, those sorts of things. And I'll also be giving information in this video about the summer assignment, which I know is something that a lot of folks want to know about. Throughout the course of this video, I will be going over a lot of things that if you were in honors US history, particularly if you were in my honors US history class, really will not be all that necessary for you. It'll be stuff that you already know pretty well. Even those of you that took honors history and maybe weren't in my class, it may still not be new information for you. So I will be putting in the description box I'll put timestamps rather is what I'm getting at, of places where you might want to skip. So those of you that have had honors US history, either with me or with someone else, you might want to skip over some of the kind of middle section is where I'm going to be talking about some of those differences between AP US history and regular US history. So you may want to skip over those things and just look at sort of this general basic information here at the front and then the information at the end where I'm going to talk about the summer assignment. So feel free to skip over the middle section in just a few moments if you have already had some experience with this higher level of history class. So with that said, let me jump on in to what to expect for AP US history. First of all, for those of you that do not know me, my name is Catherine Summers, and I teach as well as AP US history. I also teach honors US history in the 10th grade, which is one of the precursors to this class, not a prerequisite, so it's not a requirement, but it is recommended. I also teach AP microeconomics to 12th graders, so maybe I'll be seeing some of you again in the 12th grade, or at least for part of the 12th grade. I have been teaching total 18 years, and most of that has been done at least partially in the honors AP upper level kind of world. So this is something that I really do love. I really think I am best at it. Rather even than teaching similar materials on a general level. I think this is something where I really do have a lot of knowledge and skills that I can impart to my students and help them to be successful in AP classes. With that, let me jump on into what you're going to need for class. And this is relevant to everyone because there are a few things that are different here than they were in honors, since we are now actually AP. So there are some expenses that come along with AP classes that don't come with honors. One of those expenses is actually the book. So for this class, you are actually going to purchase the book that we will use. Now, there is a school-issued textbook that I can issue you, but this is the one that you'll actually be reading from. And those of you who've had me before know that I do require you to read with every chapter. There are reading quizzes with every chapter, but for 11th grade, it is with this book. I don't use the school book for that. And if you could compare this book to the school book, you'd be very glad for that. This is a much easier read. It is very condensed and to the point. It has all the information that you need to be successful without a bunch of fluff and sort of difficult to get through language that the AP book, the school book, tends to do. So this one is much easier, and it has lots of practice questions that you can use, both multiple choice, short answer, even DBQs, which some of you may not know what a DBQ is yet, but you will. Those are in here as well. So it's excellent for the class and preparing for AP US history. This is the AMSCO AP or Advanced Placement US History book, and you want specifically the 4th edition, which was issued in 2021. So it should say, where does it say that on here? 4th edition. It's actually on the spine right there. 4th edition 2021. Now, do not get, there are earlier editions, 2018, 2020. Don't get those. That's the one I have been using up until now. In fact, the current 11th graders that are moving up to 12th grade, they have the old one. So if someone offers you that book or says they'll sell it to you, normally I think that's totally fine, but we're having to switch over to this newer version. I tried to hold out as long as I could, but this one is actually easier to get your hands on now. So we're switching over to this 4th edition version. I've been in the 3rd edition, same stuff. They just organize it differently. So this is the one that you need. It ranges from about 25 to $20 to $25, or really maybe even $27, $28. There are different places you can get it, and I have two different links. I'll put them in the description box below of where you can get this. You can get this off of Amazon. You can also get it from, there's a website called Perfection Learning that sells it. Those are the two sources that I would suggest. But this is the book you're going to need, and you really need it by about the first week of school. So please go ahead and get your hands on a copy of this book. And again, I think you will enjoy reading this. It is pretty simple and to the point, and just kind of gets you what you need and leaves out the stuff that you don't need. So you need that. So those links are in the description box below. Now, the other fee associated with this class is, of course, the fee for the AP exam. The AP exam is the test that you will take at the end of the year. It is in May. Usually around about first full week of May. Taking the AP exam, first of all, we need to specify it is required. That is not an option. You must take the AP exam, so therefore you must pay the fee for that AP exam. If you do not take the AP exam, or do not pay the fee for the AP exam, and therefore you don't take it, then the AP credit, the AP extra bump that you get, the GPA bump, will be denied. So you will not end up getting that. In other words, you won't end up getting the extra GPA points for all of the extra work that you've put in. So you want to make sure you take the AP exam. The fee for the AP exam as of right now granted, this could change going into a new school year, but as of right now in the spring, this is what it is. It is $110 or $15 if you're on free or reduced lunch. That money is going to be due either in November or April. That depends on which semester you have the class. At this time, the master schedule hasn't been made yet, or rather, I don't know what the master schedule is. And even if it had, it is subject to change. So if you end up with APUS history in the first semester, that money will be due in November. Now, you still don't take the exam till May, but if you're in there in the second semester, it is due in April. So it's $110 or $15 for that AP exam. And again, that is a requirement. But those are the only two fees. So you pay for the exam, and you need to pay for your book, which, by the way, you will have the opportunity. This year's juniors didn't get this since we're switching over to the new version. But as long as there isn't another new version that comes out that we have to switch to, you may be able to sell this or consign it rather to a rising junior the following year. So you may actually end up getting some of your money back for this book. And this has both 10th grade and 11th grade information in it. So those are the fees that you're going to need and the requirements. Now, let me talk about study sessions. I used to talk about these study sessions because I needed to make it clear that they were another requirement, that you had to attend these extra study sessions. They are now no longer required for a number of reasons. But we still have them. So now I'm just telling you them partly as reassurance. A lot of students, since we have been on the block schedule where we're only in classes for a semester, that has made some students a little bit hesitant because they think, well, what if I end up with this class in the first semester and I'm done with it in December, and then I have to take this AP exam in May after I haven't been in the class? I do have study sessions that I will start doing in the spring. Again, this used to be a requirement. They are no longer required. One, because there's just too many other things that go on in the spring, school-related things, to really make it required. And furthermore, oftentimes students aren't in my class anymore by that point. So it doesn't really make sense to try to punish them for something that I just really can't. So, but starting in April, I will start holding study sessions. Some of them will be on Saturdays. Some of them will be before and after school to help you prepare. So they're not required, but they are very much encouraged. But that's something just to keep in mind if that's an issue for you. If you're thinking, oh, I don't know how I'll do on that AP exam if I don't have the class at the time, that's what the study sessions are for. So that just serves as a bit of a reassurance and something you can expect to see and listen for as it gets to be spring of next year. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about what we're going to be studying. Now, just like with Honors U.S. History in the 10th grade, for AP U.S. History, you don't learn different material. It is a question of the standard, the expectation, and what you do with that material. So this would actually be the same kind of things that if you were in a general history class, but what we'll be looking at is the second half of U.S. History. I'm going to be picking up right where we left off in the 10th grade. We'll start with a look at westward expansion after the Civil War era, frontier wars and things like that. agriculture in the West. That will move us into the time of the Gilded Age, which is the later 19th century, second big wave of industrialization, urbanization, immigration, those sorts of things. We will look at the beginnings of American empire, imperialism, moving beyond the North American continent, acquiring overseas territories for the first time as a result of things like the Spanish-American War. Then we'll look at the progressive era, early 1900s, major reform movements to try to respond to the developments of the Gilded Age, responding to the problems created by industrialization and urbanization. Then we'll move into the United States' involvement in World War I and the subsequent 1920s, a look at the Great Depression era and the New Deal, before looking, of course, at all the different aspects of the World War II era, both military and domestic things. And then the last kind of second half of class focuses on the Cold War era from 1960s onward, Cold War policy, Cold War economics, the Civil Rights era, of course, big changes taking place there, the Vietnam conflict. And then in the final phase of the class, we're looking at everything 1980 present, which includes the rise of conservatism with the Reagan era, and then moving even eventually into, I do go up as much to the present day as I can, until modern America are moving into the 21st century, with the various challenges facing the United States during the 21st century, foreign and domestic, and that is pretty much where we wrap up. Now, again, those are some of the same things that you'd be studying if you were in regular U.S. history 11th grade. It is a lot about, the difference comes from a lot of the rigor and the kinds of assignments and the kinds of expectations. So at this point, if you took my honors my honors U.S. history class, you may not need to hear this next bit. This is almost identical to the presentation that I gave you as ninth graders. It's up to you if you want to keep watching. If not, you can look at the timestamp and move to the part that says summer assignment. But if you're sticking around, I'm going to talk for a minute about what AP means and what makes it different than regular U.S. history. So AP, of course, means advanced placement. This is not something that is exclusive to Smith Station or Lee County or even Alabama, or even the United States. This is an international program that involves students all over the world, high school students, giving them the opportunity to earn college credit while still in high school. So AP courses are designed to be the equivalent of a college level course and designed to prepare you for college. It's designed to give you that rigor, that advanced coursework that is going to make you more prepared for college. And to me, that is probably the bigger value that AP classes have, more than just the opportunity to get college credit, because that's something you're going to get even if you don't score high enough on the AP exam, or you end up going to a school that doesn't take it or something like that. You are still going to have the rigor and the skills and the ability to take whatever college throws at you in a way that people that might have not taken AP classes or upper level classes, they might not have as much experience with that. But having said that, we are going to be working on the necessary skills and the content knowledge to help you be successful on the AP exam that I was mentioning earlier. Again, it's designed to be the equivalent of a college level course. So we are doing a lot more rigorous kind of stuff. Reasons why, sorry, I'm moving myself around so you can actually read what's on the screen here. Why you should take AP classes, of course, the challenge. I know a lot of students, what is done in general level classes may be boring or may not be hard enough for them, and they want that challenge. And AP classes will absolutely challenge you. Go into more depth, learn a little bit more. We might just do a little bit more digging in some things and have the opportunity to do more work that gets us more knowledgeable about the subject matter. Of course, the possibility of college credit, and I cannot emphasize enough that, hanging your hat on getting that college credit, shouldn't, or there's so much more to it than that. There's so much more that you can gain from AP classes, even if you don't end up getting that college credit. And that is that you're going to be better prepared for college. Whether you make a 5 or you make a 1 on that AP US history exam in the spring, you are going to be better prepared for whatever college has to throw at you, because you are going to gain self-discipline. You're going to gain organizational skills. You are going to learn to be self-motivated. You're going to learn to take your own notes. You're going to learn to study, all those kind of things that you need to do. And of course, there is a GPA bump or an extra GPA weight to compensate you for all that extra work that you're going to have to put in order to be successful in this class. So I hope that gives you a better idea of what AP means and how it makes just what it means, just generally speaking. Now, I'm going to show you some specific examples about differences in um, the kind of work and the kind of expectation here in just a moment. But some general expectations is it's bigger, more challenging workload. Now, I'm not intentionally just loading all kinds of work on you for the express purpose of bogging you down and making you crazy, but it is going to be more challenging. It's not going to be basic recall kind of stuff. Again, the content is similar to what happens in general history, but it's what you do with it. It's not going to be just spitting out names and dates and facts. Assignments could be lengthier. There's perhaps in some cases more of an emphasis on doing work independently, studying independently. And there's an emphasis on analysis, on synthesizing information, on creating and defending arguments, not just basic recall. That is done through a number of ways, including argumentative essays. And this is, again, the big difference. This is where you can really, there's difference in skill performance. You can know all the names and dates you want, but if you don't, express those things in an argumentative, analytical way, you will not be as successful. So it's not just about naming facts. The misconception a lot of folks have about history is that it is just trivia, that it is just learning a bunch of facts and spitting them back out, and that's absolutely not what it is. And that's the big difference. Lengthier, more difficult reading, both primary sources and secondary sources, and your textbook. You will have to study. Just memorizing won't work. As I've already been kind of emphasizing, you can know all the names and dates that you want. You can memorize that all you want, but you have to do something with it. You have to be able to use that information as evidence to arguments and to analyze certain events. And overall, just a higher standard and expectations. Because it is an AP class, I just expect more. And the kind of work, the kind of answers, the kind of responses that might get full credit in a general level class probably won't get full credit in an AP class, because I just expect more. You're just expected to do more and just to respond in a more sophisticated college level, really kind of a way. So let me give you a few examples. I'm going to make myself a little smaller here so I'm not taking up the whole screen, because what you really want to see is what's on the screen. Or actually, no, it's not going to let me do that. Never mind. I'll put myself right here. So anyway, looking at some differences in the kinds of questions that you might see. So over here on this side, I've got the kind of question, how it might be phrased, or how I might phrase a question if it was a general level history class, and then what that's more likely to look like in an AP class. So in general history, you might see something that's very basic and recall oriented. What was the progressive movement? Okay. In AP history, it's more going to be not just what was the progressivism, but how was progressivism a response to the development of a new urban and industrial America. I wouldn't ask you just describe the United States participation in World War II. I would ask you to compare it to the role in World War I, domestically, militarily, diplomatically. What accounts for those differences for the participation? Instead of saying just what are the changes brought by Ronald Reagan, what caused this whole rise of the new right, and how did it reshape American political thinking? So what you may notice about these is these kind of questions assume you already know this. It assumes you already know what the progressive movement is. It assumes you already know what the United States' participation in World War II was. It assumes you already know the changes brought by Reagan. And then it's just asking you to do something else with it. So that's a bit more in depth. It's a bit more difficult, and just requires you to think a lot more. Here's a similar example, but with multiple choice. So a general history question, not to say that I don't ever ask questions like this. You will see some questions like this on your test, but where you have just a very simple recall-based question of what effect did World War II have on the United States' economy, and you would choose the correct answer, which would be B, leading to labor shortages. On AP US history, a lot of the questions are what we call stimulus-based, like this one, meaning it has this graph here that we have to interpret. So we have to interpret the information on the graph or in the reading or on the image, and then connect it and contextualize it to information, the content knowledge that we have. So here it asks us what is responsible for the change shown between 1938 and 42. We can see there that there is a massive, we have a bit of an uptake in 38, and then, or this is unemployment, I'm sorry, it ticks up a little bit in 38 and then very much declines by 1942. So I would need to look at that and go, okay, what was happening in that time? Well, that's the outbreak of World War II in Europe and eventually the United States getting involved in it. So answer C would be correct, industrial mobilization as a result of the Second World War. So you're having to do more than just read the graph, you have to connect it to the context of the time. Another example, you probably are not going to see as much as basic recall, fill in the blank kind of stuff. More Americans supported war with Germany after, and the answer there would be D, the Zimmermann telegram. Again, the questions are oftentimes going to assume you already know that. And so instead, you're more likely to see something like this, where we have a primary source here. Actually a bit from the Zimmermann telegram, and you would need to recognize it as the Zimmermann telegram and know what it did. And the answer here would be that D, it pushed the United States closer to participation in the First World War. So there's going to be more questions that ask you to analyze stimuli like this one and to be able to read a primary source, comprehend it, identify and contextualize it, and then connect it to the other content that you have been learning. One other example, multiple choice wise, I do a lot of all the following except kind of questions like so, where you're finding essentially the wrong answer, the one that doesn't really work, as opposed to what best describes the economy of the 1970s, in that there was recession and inflation. I'm more likely to ask you something that's a bit more complex and makes you think a little bit more of all the following except kind of things. So again, there's a bit of a difference there. Now, let me show you some of these short answers. We also do lots of what we call short answers, and then there are, of course, the long essay questions as well. This is what I mean by a short answer question. This is the kind of short answer question that would appear on the AP exam, where you really get to pick from a number of things that you know, but you do have to express it in a certain way. So if you look at this one, it asks to describe a difference between migration patterns in the period 1910 to 1940 with that of 1941 and 1980, then ask for a similarity between migration patterns in those same years, and then give an example of an impact of that. And I'll give students more information and more parameters about how you answer these and what is considered an appropriate answer, but this is much more involved than just tell me about immigration patterns or migration patterns in this period. It gives you some more specific things that you need to respond to, and it would expect a more specific answer. Here's another example of a short answer question. A lot of these are also stimulus based. This one giving an image, and these are all things that we'll be learning, by the way, next year if you haven't figured that out. These are all questions that you may not know the answers to now, but that's expected. This is all content that's related to the 11th grade course. This one dealing with Roosevelt and the Progressive Era, and it asks to describe a perspective about the role of the government in society due to this cartoon, an event or development that led to the situation that's being depicted here, and then a specific outcome. So you need to be able to interpret the image, contextualize the image, and then make the connections to that context from which it comes. In this case, the Progressive Era. And once again, I will go over parameters and expectations of how those need to be done. Then, of course, we have the long essay questions. The long essay questions, we did these a lot in honors, and I will kind of do a brief, get you up to speed kind of a thing. So if this completely freaks you out, I will give some more details. I will kind of run a crash course of how these are done in the 11th grade course. So while, yes, some of your peers, if you didn't take honors, some of your peers, yes, are going to have more experience with this, but I am going to run through all of the rules and the rubric and all those things. It will just be quick. So it can be done. Just buckle up and be ready. But these are examples of the kinds of essay questions that you will see. So it would not be something like just write an essay about the populace, but evaluate the extent to which the populist movement was a turning point in United States economy or politics. Compare and contrast the roles of women in two of these time periods. To what extent did the Civil War create change in the American economy, so forth and so on. So they require you to argue. They require you to say this is the extent to which the populist movement created change. Here's evidence to suggest that it was change. Here's evidence to suggest that it wasn't changing all of that much. So they require you to create and construct some kind of argument, but those are all things that I will run through at the beginning of class. I think this is what a lot of folks are particularly nervous about, but that I'm aware of it, and we have to move quickly. We can't go all the way back to square one, but we can hang out at square one for just a second. So we will absolutely do that. Just generally speaking, what to expect as far as your classwork: more reading, more analyzing primary sources. We use primary sources so much we get sick of them, but we do use a lot of those. Graphic organizers sometimes. I've already mentioned developing, making arguments, short answer questions, in-class essays, those kind of things. Just overall more sophisticated kind of work, and just less basic recall, less what is this, what is that, identify this, match this with that. That is seldom used. It's just expected that you learn that on your own and you remember it. So unless book work, I don't even really do book work at all. There's no vocabulary definitions, things like that. A lot of the very simple kind of work that you probably did in middle school and maybe even some in high school, we really get away from most of that stuff. It's time to move on and do stuff that is more difficult and more interesting too. I think you'll find more invigorating for sure. As far as what to expect as far as homework, the AP classes oftentimes get associated with there being a very, very heavy workload and lots of homework. My answer to that is there a lot of homework, is yes and no. I'm not giving a bunch of homework in that at the end of class, it's not like I'm going, okay, guys, here's the homework, do all this stuff. Homework, though, is needed. It is needed to be done. You do technically have homework each night or throughout the week, even though that may not always mean that you're sitting down and doing an actual written assignment. Nightly homework does include reading and studying. You do need to be reading the book as we go along. As I've already mentioned, reading quizzes will happen with every chapter, at least starting with the second one that we do. So that's something that you should be doing. You should be studying your notes every night so that you're learning it along the way. Again, it is assumed that once it's been gone over in class, you're learning it. We don't really go back and I don't reteach those things again. So it's expected that you learn that. That probably needs to be done more at home. Getting it to sink in is your job at home. Completing unfinished class assignments. Most of the time, if you have a written something that you've got to sit down and do and pull out your Chromebook and actually complete an assignment, a physical thing, it's going to be something that we started in class and probably did the bulk of in class, but you have to finish. So I'm not giving out just tons and tons of written work just for the sake of giving you something to do at home. It's going to be finishing what didn't get finished, reading and studying, and making sure that you're prepared for class the next day and that you're getting ready for all those different things that take place in class, tests, essays, and things like that. Now let me talk to you for a moment about the overall difference standard. So the quality of work is important. Quality is just as important, if not more important, than just being right. And that frustrates a lot of students, I know. It's not just about being right. It's not just right or wrong. There is something about the sophistication, the thoroughness, the richness of the content that you produce, the validity and the richness of the argument and the thoroughness of the argument that you present. So let me talk about that for just a moment. So if you had a just basic identify question like this, identify Dwight D. Eisenhower. Okay, if you just told me a general, that would not get credit. Is that wrong? No, he was a general, but that is not something I would give credit for, because that same answer could answer a number of people. You could be talking about Eisenhower. You could be talking about, Ulysses S. Grant. So you got to give me more specifics than that. Now, if you answered something more along the lines of he was a general and later became president, that I might give some partial credit to, but I wouldn't give full credit to, because again, still, you're not really telling me anything super specific about Dwight D. Eisenhower. Again, you could be talking about George Washington there. You could be talking about Ulysses S. Grant there. That could hold true for a lot of people. So you got to give me something specific. A more appropriate answer that would get full credit is something more like here at the bottom, that Eisenhower was an army general who commanded Allied forces in Europe during World War II. When he became president, pursues a Cold War policy of massive retaliation and showed some support to civil rights by integrating or forcing the integration of Central High School in Arkansas. call. So that's what I'm looking for, is more specific. One of the nice things about it is that it's an easy way to contact me, either by posting a comment or something along those lines, but you're also feel free to email me. My email is right there. I'm usually pretty good about checking it during the summer and responding back during the summer, but if I'm out of town, it might be a couple of days. So do allow a couple of days for a reply. But I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. I'm looking forward to a great year. Like I said, I cannot promise you what the end results will be when those AP test scores come around about a year from now or a little bit more. But what I can guarantee you is that you will learn a lot. I can guarantee you will be challenged, and I can guarantee you that you will walk out of my classroom a stronger student than you were going into it. You will walk out better prepared than you were before, and you will be ready for those college classes. Whether or not you actually have a credit on your transcript I can't promise that, but it's certainly very, very possible. I can't make the promise, but I can promise you will be ready, regardless of what that AP score says in next summer. So looking forward to seeing everybody in the fall. Hope you have a great summer. Please let me know if you have any sort of questions, and I am looking forward to a great semester together. Everybody have a good summer, and we'll see you soon.